open up the floor here in Columbus. Bill Rabinowitz, Columbus Dispatch.
You played at that stadium a couple years ago. What are your memories of that? And I know it's not a big deal, but does it give you a little bit of comfort knowing you've played there before?
Yeah, I've actually played there twice. We played there in 2021. I didn't start in 2021. It was our first game of the season there, my sophomore year. We played Stanford, and then obviously we played in the Big 12 championship down there. And yeah, man, it's a fun place to play. I've got some fond memories there. Yeah, and it's fun. It is nice to be able to go somewhere that you've played in before, and I think a lot of people on this team have played in that stadium, and I think they have some not so fond memories there. So we want to flip the script on that.
Did you watch that game last year?
I did. Yeah.
That was a pivotal game for you because that hadn't happened in the Missouri game I was talking about.
Yeah.
How intently were you watching?
I was watching. Yeah, no, I was tuned in, man. I was we played Missouri last year, and obviously, the Buckeyes are the Buckeyes, and I was tuned in, man. And so, yeah, I know a lot of these guys on this team, didn't feel great about how that game went. So, it's good that we're getting another chance to go down there and right some wrongs again.
Far left, Noah Weisskopf, the Lantern.
I've got two for you. First, we know at Ohio State what it means to not beat a team like Michigan. How does that equate to losing to Texas from your time at Kansas State? And just describe the feeling of getting another stab at Texas to beat them.
Yeah, I don't think it has anything to do with that rivalry. It's not really the same. But for me personally, that was the only team I didn't beat when I was in the Big 12. So, yeah, there's definitely personally for me, a little extra motivation there because, I never got the chance to beat these guys, played them 4 years, and they're always a good team, but I don't think none of those games were unwinnable. Last year we lost in overtime, and so definitely excited to get another chance at these guys.
And then what do you think is the biggest difference between your time here versus your time at Kansas State? I guess what's the biggest thing you've learned from being here?
There's a lot of things I've learned, man. I feel like I've grown in a lot of different ways and matured on and off the field. And, I think, and I've said this before, I think the biggest thing that I've taken away from this experience is that, I don't have to make things happen. I think something profound that Coach Kelly told me pretty early on in my career here was, don't make things happen, just let it happen. Just let the game come to you. Be a game manager, take care of the football, make good decisions, and keep us on track. And, when I do that, the completion percentage goes up, efficiency goes up, a lot of things like that. And I just feel like having more of that emphasis on, taking completions, taking checkdowns, staying on schedule, not forcing things to work, but, making positive yards on a play, because sometimes that's all you need to get is just get back to the line of scrimmage. And just making things work. I think that's probably the biggest way I've grown this year.
Cameron T. Robinson, The Athletic.
Well, kind of off that, you talked a couple times this year about the game's never going to be perfect, but it's the playoffs. Sometimes people have a tendency to press and want to be perfect. How do you juggle that with also knowing that, like you said, you don't have to be superhuman, you don't have to be perfect for this team to move the ball and continue to be successful? Yeah,
I think those two go hand in hand a little bit. I think you don't want to press. You don't want to press to make any wild plays or anything like that because it's the playoffs. And I think your mindset can't change. From the regular season or either of the two first playoff games that we played. I think we did a really good job of hitting our shots and taking the game as it came. And not forcing any shots. There maybe were some plays where we had even more shots down the field called and had to check it down. Like there's just, you got to take the game as it comes. You can't force things to happen. And in the playoffs, things can come down to one play, and obviously we want to leave no doubt and make sure that it's not like that. But we know that we're playing a really good team in Texas, and we just got to keep playing free, playing with an edge, and doing what we've been doing. And I think we're playing really good football right now, but we just got to keep ramping up and keep getting better and better.
And Luke was talking about you as a leader, kind of the intensity you bring, just everything you bring to this group. But it just seems like that's you, like that's kind of your personality, your outgoing personality. Just what's just kind of putting words what this year's been like, how much fun it's been for you, knowing kind of everything that went on in your career and how you got here.
Yeah, man, it's been a lot of fun. It's been a blast. I mean, the guys here on the team, they've taken me in, man, and love me for me, and because sometimes I'm unapologetically myself, and I don't know if that rubs some people the wrong way sometimes, but I'm me, and I'm gonna try and have fun and keep things light at times, but also be super intense, and I'm one competitive son of a gun, so I'm gonna make sure that we're making every opportunity we can to go out there and compete. I love, so I just being here, man. It's been a blessing for me in more than one way, and I've been able to have fun on one of the biggest stages and kind of be myself and let people see that, and I think that's one of the best parts of this, and I just appreciate these guys here for putting up with me and loving me for me.
Over here to the right, Kellyanne Stitz.
WSYX. You made the transition in last year look seamless, but I'm sure it was a lot coming in, learning a new playbook, learning a new city, just acclimating in general. Who would you identify as your support system, and how have you leaned on them in this past year at Ohio State?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, my support system always is my family, and I lean on them for a ton of different stuff. And when I originally went out to Kansas State, as an 18, 19-year-old kid, my mom came out there a lot. My dad, they helped me a ton when I was transitioning there. And here it was different. I'm older now. I can kind of be on my own a little more. But for me, it was more, acclimating to the team. A new environment. It felt more like a professional kind of move. And I think my family did an unbelievable job of helping me, and obviously it helps that I'm a little closer to home now. I'm only 6.5 hours, I think is the drive from here to Downingtown. It was about 18, 19 when I was at K-State, so I never made that drive. But it's been great. My family was awesome, and then also those other transfer guys I came in with helped a ton. With me being able to come in with, really it was Seth and Q and Will Kazmarek, and then Caleb and Julian came in a little later, but that was a couple weeks after I had gotten here. But we all kind of leaned on each other because we were all kind of going through something similar. We'd all played a lot of football, but had to acclimate to a new team and to a new culture, and I think we had a lot of fun with it, and I think we're just all thankful to be here and be Buckeyes.
Nicole Shear and WBNS.
Well, I feel like this season, there's been a big theme of redemption and revenge for you, whether it's against Oregon or, making that statement against Penn State. Now you have a chance to do it against Texas. How does that just fire you up, and is that kind of a difference maker for you out there?
Yeah, I think, I try to find motivation in a lot of different things, and, I've always kind of looked at myself as somewhat of an underdog, and I wasn't super highly recruited. Nobody really expected me to play early at K-State, and I kind of got thrown in, and I kind of like to take on that underdog mentality a little bit and that chip on my shoulder, and I think that does help myself and give myself a little edge, a little more extra motivation at times. But it also has to come from within, and it can't be you making up a story to get you pumped up every single week. You obviously have to strive and want to be the best, but it's just so happened that there's been some games this year that have been a little personal to me, and that have hit home. But we got 2 more games left, and this one coming up is the biggest game that we're going to play this year, because it's the next one, and because there's 4 teams left, and we know Texas is a heck of a football team, and I played them for 4 years and wasn't able to beat them. They're a good squad, so we're gonna have to be on our stuff, and I'm just excited and thankful to be here, and I'm ready for the challenge.
We're going to take a couple more in Columbus and then head on to the Zoom, and we'll finish up here in Columbus. Austin Moore, the podcast.
Well, as you've got into the Texas film in the last couple of days, how much of it is I've seen a lot of this before from the previous preparation? How much of it looks different to you?
Yeah, I've actually, I went back and watched our game from last year. I think there's some different different personnel in there, some new players, but a lot of the same stuff. And I feel like they, defensively are, they kind of do what they do, and they're pretty darn good at it. They got some dudes in the back. Barron's a really good player. They got that freshman up front who's really good. I think number 95 is playing really good football right now. So they got a stout front, not necessarily as big as those two dudes were last year, but they got some dudes, man. So schematically, yeah, they're doing some of the same stuff, but everybody changes year in and year out. So got to continue to grind on them and make sure that we know them inside and out.
Ryan and Chip had mentioned that in some of the game planning meetings that you've had more voice in that. Is your experience with the Texas defense and looking at them 4 times, do you think that, how much more will you suggest some things or maybe not suggest some things this week? I don't know.
Yeah, I think I wouldn't say it's any more different or any different really than a normal week. Obviously I do have a little more, experience with these guys and maybe, have some more stronger feelings on, hey, I like this or I don't like this. I don't know. We really haven't, came across that too much. It's felt like kind of a normal week. I have felt more involved in the game planning process, and they want to make sure that they're running plays that I like, and vice versa. I want to make sure that I'm running them the right way, and so we all got to be on the same page. So I try to get in there as much as I can, and it's been so good for me, for my development and my just knowledge of the game, just to be around great minds like them all the time.
Rob Aller, Columbus Dispatch.
Yeah, well, you played a lot of football. You've seen a lot of postseason formats. Does this already feel like a really long season?
Yeah, kind of. It's yeah, a little bit, but I knew it. We all knew this was the format, and we all understood that we were going to be playing football, until January 20th. If we make it this far, and we obviously expected to be here, and we're not going to sit here and say we're not proud of the fact that we are here, because there's only 4 teams practicing this week, so we are proud of it, but that doesn't mean anything yet. We still haven't done anything yet. We still have 2 more games to win before we can really say we did anything.
When you're in practice and JT and Jack are coming off the edge, do you see the fire in their eyes even in practice? Like,
oh yeah,
what's that?
100%. I've seen the edge in those guys the last couple weeks, man. And me and Jack talk to each other a lot. Just like after practice, like how was it? How was it over there? Was the energy up today? Were you getting guys going? And Jack's such a good leader over there too. And JT's doing the same thing. He's keeping those guys going. Talking some mess if he needs to. Those guys are awesome, man. So I think the way that we've practiced the last 2 weeks has propelled us to perform the way we have on the field. So we need to continue to practice the way that we've been practicing and having that same edge out there.
All right, Scotty, we'll let you take it away for a few Zoom calls.
Yes, sir. First one's going to come from Danny Davis. Danny, go ahead.
Hey, Will, from what you've seen on film and also what you remember last year, what are your impressions of not only Jade, but the other cornerbacks, Manny Muhammad, Gavin Holmes, over there at Texas?
Yeah, I think they're really athletic. They're big. They're good. I mean, they're good players. They're instinctual. You can tell that they go against a really good offense every single day, and there's certain things that they're pretty good at that they probably see a lot from Quinn and their offense. But I think overall, man, they got some good players, but we got some pretty good players too. So I'm excited to see the matchup, man. It's I think they're more of a zone operation. Want to stay on top of some stuff, but I'm looking forward to it. I think they have a great secondary, and those dudes have had a hell of a year. So we wouldn't want it any differently than going up against the best. So I'm excited.
Next question is going to come from Stephen Means. Go ahead.
Well, statistically, Texas has the best pass defense in the country, 5.5 yards per attempt. You just mentioned that they're a kind of a zone operation. From a schematic standpoint, what you've seen, how do they test a quarterback's eyes that's allowed them to be performing at the level they performed this year?
I think they try to bait you into doing things, and I think they try to bait you into pushing the ball into tight windows, and you got to be smart. Playing a defense like this, you have to know when to take those shots and when not to, and when to be smart with it. And there's cavities, there's creases in it, but you just have to find them and be patient with it and not force it to happen because those guys react quick and they break on balls well, especially at the corner position. I think their safeties are really, really physical, really good players. So, yeah, man, it's going to be a challenge. May have to be a little more patient at the quarterback position at times, and not just trying to force things, but like I said, taking the game as it comes.
Our next question is going to come from Michael Cohen. Go ahead.
Hey, Will, when Ryan Day spoke on Friday, he mentioned that for him personally, at this time of the year, he's been able to be a little bit more involved in the X's and O's and the nitty-gritty than maybe he was at other times of the year when there's other responsibilities on modern college football coaches. To what degree maybe can you draw a connection between his increased involvement and some of the explosive passing gains, that we've seen the last couple of weeks?
Yeah, man, he's definitely been more involved in the game planning process. Obviously, you take out some of the BS that he has to deal with as, the changing nature of college football. He's more of sometimes a general manager, in the off season and even in the early season than being a head coach. But, I feel like now with the playoffs and, having 10 days between each game, we're really able to refine our game plan, get in there and really find what we like. And I think it's been really positive for us these last 2 weeks. And we just I'm excited, to see what we draw up this week and hopefully do the same thing.
Our next one's going to come from Donovan Bridgeforth.
Hey, Will, Donovan Bridgeforth, TXA and 24 News. I know as a unit, you guys are focused on the many ways the Longhorns may attack you guys, but if there's one player on their defense that you studied the most in your preparation for this game, who is that player and how have they altered your preparation as it's went this week?
That's a good question. I don't think there's ever one guy that I sit there and just watch a ton of. I try to watch all of them equally because they're all out there. I think number 7, I'm definitely keeping a close eye on. I mean, the numbers speak for themselves. I mean, he won the Thorpe Award. He's a hell of a player. I'm definitely watching him. I think 11's pretty disruptive up front. I think number 0 is a dynamic player and a super, super good athlete. So I wouldn't say there's one guy in particular just because they have a ton of dudes at every level. But definitely going to try and find some interesting ways to attack them. And they're good players, man. So it's going to be a challenge, and I'm looking forward to it.
2 final ones on Zoom. The first is going to come from Andy Anders. Go ahead.
Sorry. Just the counter plays have really opened up this running game, it feels like, in some ways. Just from your vantage point, what is working on counter and what about the offensive line, the running backs you guys have, allows that play to be successful?
Yeah, they're doing a really good job on that play right now. And, I think it was, in the last 2 games, it was just something that, we felt like we could attack them with. And, we'll see what it's going to be this week. It's different from week to week. But, I think those guys did a really good job on their double teams, getting some movement up front. And then the guards did a really good job, kicking and reaming those DNs, and our tight ends are blocking their butts off right now. So, I think that, that was a good play for us the last 2 weeks. And, we'll see what Texas presents to us and, what kind of schemes we're going to attack them with. But, it's been a positive scheme. And, anytime we can get those guys downhill and rocking off the ball, that's good.
Final question is going to come from Dan Hope. Go ahead.
Hey, Will, you mentioned seeing yourself as an underdog. Quinn was the #1 overall recruit in the country. Is that something that you use as motivation when you're going head to head with him?
No, man, I'm not worried about that. We're on 2 different teams. We're on the 2 of the best teams in the country. This isn't an individual battle, man. This is a team battle. I'm not putting myself up against anyone. I'm putting me and my guys up against him and his guys. This is a team sport. So I'm not worried about that at all.
Actually, we got one last question from Kurt Bowles. Kurt.
Yeah, Will, I was curious on your decision to go to Ohio State, why you picked the Buckeyes. Did you have like a top three you were considering, and you get any crazy offers?
I think it's pretty clear why I chose the Buckeyes. Standing here today in front of you, this is why I wanted to come here, man. I was, when I was in the transfer portal process, there were a ton of schools reaching out to me, and really when it came down to it, it was pretty much coming here or going to the draft last year. Miami, USC were some other schools, but it was either I'm going to be a Buckeye or I'm going to the draft, and I just felt like I couldn't pass up the opportunity to come here and be a Buckeye and get a chance at winning a national championship, because this is why I came here, man, and this is why we're here. So got to finish the job.
That's it from Zoom.
Yep, thank you. Yeah, folks, we can't keep him much longer, and we're going to have to wrap this up pretty quickly. Bill Landis, Kings of the North.
Well, Ryan said the other day that he's been pleased with the consistency of your footwork, I think, especially in a lot of these downfield concepts you guys are working. How much time did you put into that between, about 3 weeks, I guess, between Michigan and Tennessee, and what's it been like to see the fruits of that so far?
Yeah, I don't think it was anything different. It's just been continuing to grind on it and getting my feet moving, and that's a credit to them, being on me about that in practice and making that an emphasis for me in practice, is getting my feet moving and getting them going, because you can't develop that consistency if you don't do it in practice. So I think just them, Billy and Coach Kelly and Coach Day getting on me about that in practice, making sure that that's an emphasis for me, is keeping my feet moving, and when I have my feet underneath me and my feet are active, good things happen.
Kevin Newton, 24/7 Sports.
Yeah, well, asking you to look back at the Rose Bowl for a second. What happened with the post-game stage incident? What's going through your mind when they don't let you on there? And then secondly, not asking you to look ahead and provide bulletin board material, but if given that opportunity again, do you take a different game plan as a mobile quarterback about getting up there?
Yeah, man, it was strictly a weight limit thing. So I think I don't know if it was like a poorly executed fat joke or what this guy was trying to do. Like, I don't know, I'm kidding. But I guess he said there was a weight limit, there's too many people on, everyone's making up stories, but that's all it was. Like, he was telling me, like, sorry, it's not my call. And so I ended up going to the other side and jumping on. But it was a bunch of us had to sneak on. Like, you didn't see it, but Caleb had to sneak on, and I think Lathan snuck on. So they were trying to be strict about it, but it is what it is, man. I guess they're doing their job, so I got nothing.
Adam King, BNS.
The last two games you guys have gotten the ball first. As a quarterback, would you rather have the ball coming out of halftime with a chance to set the tone with 30 minutes to go, or get out there and chance to get up 7-0?
It's a good question. You say, you want to take the ball first until you don't score on that first drive. And then it's like, oh, well, but, you get the ball first and you go down and score, and then that makes a huge difference. There's something, I really am indifferent to it. Whatever happens, happens. I can't control the flip of a coin. But I think I do like having the ball. I think there's something, kind of fun about that, getting to go out there and set the tone on offense. But I do think that there's something cool also about getting the ball at halftime and letting your defense go out there and shut them down for 3 plays and then getting the ball back. So, I mean, you go either way, man. But I do like getting the ball first and being able to go out there and set the tone.
Joey Kaufman, Columbus Dispatch.
Will, you're talking about the fact you've never beaten Texas. The game last year against them seems crazy. You threw for career-high passing yards. It went down to overtime and fourth down. I mean, in terms of losses, it's got to stick with you, I imagine, more than just looking at how much do you think back to that time, like that particular game against Texas?
Yeah, that one still sticks with me. Still pisses me off a little bit. I just felt like we had it. I mean, we had the ball on the 6-yard line, 4 downs, and couldn't punch it in there. So yeah, man, I know there's a lot of people back in Kansas that are rooting for the Buckeyes to get this one done against these guys. But yeah, man, I mean, it's a new place for me. But yeah, I guess I don't like how that one ended, and I am excited to get another chance at these guys. But they're a great team, so it'll be a good challenge.
Played in the Big 12 was Texas, the team everybody wanted to knock off, I imagine.
I feel like, it was Texas and OU were kind of the big dogs around the Big 12 conference, and whether it was always like that or not, that was kind of the sentiment around the conference. So they definitely were walking around being the being the tough guys, and they beat up on us a little bit. So, I'm excited.
3 quickies. Steve Hellwagen, 24/7.
Chip Kelly took a lot of abuse after the Michigan game. I thought watching the Rose Bowl, the first play to G, the underneath throw to Jeremiah for the touchdown, the pass where he's wide open for the touchdown, looked like he called an outstanding game. From your standpoint, and obviously you're going to boost him, he's your guy, but was that one of the better ones, I guess, that you've seen from him?
I think so, yeah. I think it was just and I think we were all on the same page about this going into the game, is we were going to be aggressive and we wanted to start out hot, and that play that we started the game off with was actually like a work in progress all week. We weren't really sure how much we liked it, and we grinded on it the last couple days before the game and came out first play and ran it and ripped them on it. So that's just a credit to the guys and working at it and executing it when it counts. But I do think he was in his bag, and he was calling that game from an aggressive mindset, and you can feel that when you're out on the field and your coordinator believes in you and is just taking shots and throwing haymakers. Like it's fun.
Andrew Gillis, Cleveland.com.
Well, you talk about being patient against a defense like this that likes to bait you guys
Mhm.
is instinctual. When you say patience, do you mean on a play-to-play level, letting your routes develop, not wanting to force a throw? Do you mean on a series-by-series level, understanding that checkdowns might, be more?
Yeah, I mean more on like a series level. You may go out there on a play and you call a shot on first down and it's not the right coverage, or they drop out of there and it's they're over top of everything. You got to check it down, and you can't be discouraged with that, because there's been multiple times this year where I've thrown checkdowns for 20, 30 yards, and those are good plays. You can't get discouraged with that. It's just keeping the game on schedule and staying ahead of the sticks.
And final questions, Tim May, Letterman Row.
Whatever. I asked you this a little bit before the game when I told you Justin Fry. I would think it's almost like a major award. He said the way you stepped up in the leadership situation after Seth McLaughlin went down in the practice, he said it was so huge for that offensive line and stuff. What do you see from this group now as you guys head into game 3? Will?
The O-line?
Yeah, the O-line, the way it has taken these punches and kept coming back. I mean, what impresses you most, I guess, about that group?
Yeah, man, their resilience, and I'm just really, really proud of the way that they've bounced back and not listened to the critics and gone out there and prove themselves against some really, really good fronts. And they got another challenge coming up with Texas. I'm excited. I know they're excited, for this opportunity. But they played really good football these last 2 games, and when they're on their stuff, man, and when they're playing with confidence, they're really, really hard to stop. And we just got to keep staying on those guys and saying, man, I mean, you're playing some damn good football. We need them to continue to grind and be those dudes that they are, because when we're clicking, I mean, those guys are we're running behind them all the way.
Great. Will, thank you very much.
Thanks, guys. Go Bucks.